So if we look at boundaries, we look really at the beginning of our life. We're looking at childhood. And if you think about it philosophically, we kind of arrive in the world through separation from a mother, well, on a spiritual level, separation from something maybe much bigger. We work ourselves towards bringing a sense of individuality through that oneness. And that happened around 2 years, where ego boundary, where the kind of toddler then is starting to explore a bit more about the world and taking some distance from the mother. We start to have a sense of boundary with a sense of yes and no. We call it terrible two. And that is the time that the journey of having a sense of individuality start. And with the boundary, we're normally developing also a sense of value and a sense of worth and a sense of having to know what protects us and what is a yes in our life and what is dangerous and what is a no. And that kind of a protection, which feels at the beginning as a two-dimensional thing. It's like mother's arm protecting and mother's a voice of don't do that. Mother's kind of putting yes and no into the grids of a child life. But I get alchemized into a more psychological kind of complex things where we can call it a container. We kind of create a container, emotional container that can start to contain our own feelings and start to sieve through good things, having a container to hold the good things in life and start to have, you can think about it as the mothership. This is the vehicle really that we kind of gauge life with, our emotional container. If we can contain our feelings without destroying either ourselves or others, then we can also deal with quite complex negative situation or difficult situation. But boundaries stay as a campus all the time, in the sense of, even though it starts quite simply as a yes and no kind of a campus, it kind of a help in defining our identity. As we are in that journey from having depended a relationship in our childhood where we depend on our care, whoever care for us, mother, father, or caretaker. We learn about a relationship to move from dependent relationship into independent relationship, which then, of course, we need to understand in independent relationship, where we start, where's the sense of self, where we start, where we finish, and where the other person start. Because that would help us have a clear communication, and that would help us as more authentic communication with the other. I mean, when we talk about self and other, we of course then talk about philosophically that there's no real other, because the other is actually a reflection of self. And your perception of me is actually a reflection of you. And you get more into the complex of that. But boundaries is going through this sense of identity and yes and no, and a container into self and other, where we can have healthy relationship and understand that kind of a spectrum of self and other, and later on into this kind of understanding the boundary of our authentic selves, where we can talk in a more vulnerable kind of voice, and differentiate from all ego defense and attack, and allow ourselves not to be in ego arena, and learn to be much more in a vulnerable, more authentic kind of place in our life.